Today you'll see a raglan sleeve top, has an elasticated neckline that gives you these lovely gentle gathers, a neckline that has a little slit. I'm going to show you how to sew a bias tape facing and casing at the same time. Look at this purple beauty. Hi sewing friends, I'm Karina from liftingpinsandneedles.com. Welcome to this channel that is all about sewing, limitless sewing, and for the last few days about a purple capsule collection. I'm not following any specific rule or guideline for capsule wardrobes. I actually have no interest in doing that, so I haven't set myself a limit as to how many pieces, what types of pieces, what types of styles, the colors. The only thing that I wanted to do was a collection that was sort of small, that would all go together, and I'm sewing every single pattern from the book So Beautiful by Kennis Wong. She is the owner of Itch to Stitch, and that's one of my favorite pattern companies. I've been involved with this book in the testing process for over a year now, and today is the 7th pattern that I'm sharing with you. We've already gone through a lot of the patterns. In each of these videos for this series, I've focused on specific techniques, but also providing some value in the sewing department, maybe even different ways to do things than traditionally. For the Mornington top and dress, I showed you how to achieve that beautiful V-neck lining and also an alternative method to do a V-neck binding. So if you want to see how to do that, that technique could be useful for so many of your garments. Go ahead and watch that one. Then we saw the tax and dolman, and this one could be super versatile. You can make it in so many ways, and I decided to make mine as a little light cover up, and I showed you there how to stabilize that chiffon neckline and how to bind that neckline instead of using a facing. I then went ahead and made the Prague top. This one originally has a cold shoulder, and I did do a cold shoulder top, but I also filled in the gap and showed you how you can do that with your pattern piece and measuring your arm. Very easy to do, and you can transform any cold shoulder design into a normal sleeve. I'm wearing the 4th pattern right now, which is the Carlsbad cardigan. It can be sleeveless or long sleeve. I made both of those, and this is my sleeveless one in purple that goes with everything. I really love it. Up to there, all the patterns for the upper part of us. Now we go down to the bottoms, and I've shown you my wide leg Fortuna pants. Super comfy, neat pants. In that video, I talked about fitting adjustments on pants and how different they can be comparing to woven pants. And then the last video we saw was about the castle point skirts. I made 2 of these fake wrap skirts. I've shown you how to sew the flat front elasticated back waistband that is the original of the pattern, and also a unique hack that has a flat front, half a yoga waistband at the back that is extremely comfortable. And we make it now to pattern number 7, which is a woven pattern. It's called Palermo top and dress, and depending on your fabric choice and the color and how you style it, it could be for all the seasons you want. This is a swishy, relaxed fit top or dress. It has a center front seam. On the top of that center front seam, you'll see a little slit there. So there is a seam there. The back is cut on the fold. And then you have raglan sleeves that are always so easy to sew and so easy to fit. You don't need to worry about it fitting the shoulder or any of that. The neckline, when you look at it, is very wide, and it's because it's finished inside with bias tape that acts as a facing and a casing, because you'll thread an elastic through that neckline, and that will bring it in to fit you properly and then create these little gentle gathers all around there, and it's absolutely beautiful. You can make it as a top, and that will just hit the mid hip, or you can do the dress version, which adds 2 tiers of gathers to the top version. So it's the same pattern, you just either hem it for the top or add the 2 gathered tiers for the dress. The original length of the raglan sleeves is long, hits the wrist, and you'll see a little casing with an elastic there to bring it in as well. I have opted to do one change to this pattern only, and that is to just make the raglan sleeves short. That's the only thing I did. There's no secret there. That's just because I want to wear this now, and it'll just be more wearable, like at this point in time, in my climate, in my season. But I absolutely love the long sleeve, and I would totally make the long sleeve for when the weather gets cooler, for sure. I really like the style. Because there's some gathers here, both around the neckline and at the bottom of the skirt, you need fabric that will drape nicely, light to medium weight. You know, double gauze, cotton lawn, drapes a little bit. It wouldn't be my choice, but it's mentioned in the pattern suggestion. Crepe, rayon. I've made mine in a chiffon, which is not a recommended fabric, but I know how to work around it, and I think it works as well. But there's a little asterisk there I want to mention. If you watched my plans video for this capsule collection a few days ago, I showed you two fabrics. I was planning to make the top and the dress. So I've made the top with the fabric I had chosen that worked perfectly. It is a crinkle chiffon. I would say a little bit heavier than the solid purple chiffon I wanted to use to make the dress. When I was doing the neckline and threading the elastic through, I could see that you could see it slightly on my top. And this top is a print. It's got purple, it's got black, it's a much darker tone, so I don't think you can see the elastic that much. But I got worried. I got my purple chiffon. I'm so glad I hadn't cut into it yet. And I went to fold it and just see how that elastic looks underneath, and you could see it totally. And of course I don't have purple elastic because I don't even think that exists. So I had to just put aside that idea and not do the purple dress in this occasion. Although I know I could finish the neckline in another way, I just didn't have the time to make those modifications right now. I would have loved to make that dress in that purple chiffon, but it was just too light and it wasn't going to be appropriate for the neckline finish in this design. I would do chiffon only if it's a really dark print that you could hide the elastic in there and it's not going to be seen, which wasn't the case for my solid purple chiffon that I really wanted to sew. You need elastic that is 3/8 of an inch wide or 1 centimeter to thread through the casing. And I didn't have any of that, so I used fold over elastic that was wider than that, and I just trimmed it to that width. So go ahead and do that. If you don't have the correct width, you can cut elastic and use it like that. Nothing's going to happen to it inside. I made a straight size 14, and this is a design that is super roomy. You have a lot of positive ease at the bust, around 6 to 7 inches, and it's all to do with the design of the raglan sleeves. You have those gathered tears. You know, this is not a fitted design at all. There is also a fabric belt that you can make to bring it in at the waist, or you can just use your own belt. And the total length of the top hits the hip, hits the mid hip. At least for me, it might hit a bit lower depending on your height. But the dress is designed to hit below the knee. And I did do all the measurements because I was going to sew it. And it was going to be way too long for what I like. It was going to be just below my knee. I needed to shorten my dress by 3 inches for it to hit where I wanted it to be. So I thought the best way to do that was just take 1.5 inches out of each of those both tiers so that they both have the same length and they look like they make sense. It wouldn't make sense to just take off that extra length from the tier that goes on the bottom, because then you would just have a little short gathered tier at the bottom. It makes no sense to me. So if you want to do length adjustments to the dress, I would suggest doing the same amount on both tiers, and then it will look like it makes sense. You have very few pattern pieces here. If you're just going to make the top like I did, you have a front that is not cut on the fold, you have a seam in the center, you have a back that's cut on the fold, and then you have your sleeve piece and the binding for the neckline. That is all. It doesn't take up much fabric. I used a little scrap I had left over of a chiffon you've already seen on an each to stitch pattern called the Shemainus top that I made in May or June sort of thing. I don't mind having another top in the same fabric because they are different designs and styles. I don't really care about that. The pattern piece that is provided to do the binding, I measured it and it's exactly the same width I would use to cut my binding when I want to use my bias tape maker that has 18 on the back, that has a finished width of 18 millimeters, and that is 3.5 centimeters. That is 1 3/8 of an inch, around that. And I found the pattern piece was exactly that same measurement. So I used the pattern piece and just put it through my bias tape maker. In Up Close and So Personal, I'm going to show you the sewing construction of this top. It is extremely easy. I'm telling you, the footage for Up Close and So Personal is shorter than what you expect. It's only about 5 minutes because it is really, really easy to sew. Not what you think when you look at the liner. I think it looks more complex than it really is. Let's see how to sew that center seam, that little slit, how to finish that neckline. Let's see all the details. Center front seam has a seam allowance of 7/8, which is 2.2 centimeters. So I'm sewing the center seam, just guiding the edge of the fabric between a 3/4 inch mark and the inch mark. I'm just going in between there, and that's the correct seam allowance. I'm sewing with a regular stitch length from the bottom of the pattern. and going up and almost reaching the neckline, you'll find a dot that's on the pattern. That's where you need to reinforce your stitch, back stitch, and then from that dot up to the top of the neckline, it's just a basting stitch, because this will be opened up later, and that will be that little opening, that little split that the neckline has on the top. After sewing this, we go to the iron and just press this seam open, and then that seam allowance gets folded, tucked in under by 3/8, and it's super neat. It's folded in on both sides, and I'm working with fiddly fabric, so I'm going the extra step of basting this. If I wasn't using this, I probably wouldn't. Probably just pressing it would be enough. Now I'm just top stitching this from that seam line, 3/8 seam allowance on each side. So I'm going up, all the way up, 3/8, and then turning around, putting the front, going down again, and sewing on the other side at 3/8. Then I can go ahead and open that little area on the top that's just got basting stitches, and that will form the little slit of the neckline there. After showing you how to sew the center front seam, there's a little slit up there. You can't really see it. You go ahead and sew on the raglan sleeves. It's extremely easy. You just match the notches and sew them on. After that, the pattern says to do the neckline and then do the side seams. But I've done the side seams first and left the neckline for last. I have the bias tape here, and I've pinned it on right sides together to the neckline, and I've pinned it all the way around. I actually cut mine a little bit longer than the pattern piece just in case, so I do have some excess there. Here where we have this little split on the neckline, we need to leave 1/2 inch dangling off. That will get folded in. Once this is sewn on, we flip this to the inside, and this bias tape will be like a facing and a casing, because that's where the elastic is going to go through. I'm sewing on that first little crease that was created when I made this piece of bias tape. There is a pattern piece for it. I use the pattern piece provided, and I just put it through my bias tape maker. This is one of the seams of the raglan sleeves, and they're meant to be pressed towards the sleeves. You can see that under there. Make sure they stay there while you're sewing the bias tape. This is the inside of the top, and I've sewn on the tape right there on that crease. And now I've got that 1/2 inch protruding there from each of these sides of the slit on the top. I'm going to snip in there, under stitch. So I've got the bias tape that way, the seam allowance that way. You can see it through the fabric, and I'll just sew on the edge. You can see the under stitching there. This is essentially a bias facing, so it does need to happen for this to stay inside. Now this little bit dangling, I've decided to fold it just like this, just keeping that fold and then folding it down. It's a little fiddly with this fabric. That finishes that point there on the front really neatly. This is what I'm going to sew by hand later. And now we need to sew this down. Okay, so all this is basted on. I can now just sew from the edge there up to the other side. I've got this pinned closed right now, but there's actually an opening through there. This is where the elastic gets put through. You can see a little bit of elastic protruding through. This is where I started threading it through, and it already came out the other side. I've still got my safety pin there. I don't have 3/8 inch elastic in black, so this is fold over elastic that I just trimmed to that width, because the fold over elastic was a little bit wider. I'm very liberal in that sort of thing. I'll just use whatever works. Make sure it's not twisting in there. Make sure that it's nice and neat. And now this, I'm just going to tuck it in just enough to be behind this section. So I just used my seam ripper to tuck that elastic in there, and now I can put a pin through there and just close off this area. This edge is what I'm going to sew by hand, and on here is where I'm going to sew that elastic down there, because the elastic is sort of up to there, right there. Okay, I've sewn all this little section closed by hand. I think it's better for this fabric. I've still got my elastic pinned there so it doesn't go inside. And on that stitch right there, I'm just going to sew on top and hold that elastic down. And then that's it. The neckline will be done. I have already hand basted my hems. I've folded up twice by 1/4 inch. And then I'll just sew that. And then that's it. Done. And here is my gorgeous top. It's so light and so floaty. You can see that neckline there has that center seam. It's sewn down inside, and it's so neat because the seam allowance is folded to the inside, so there's no chance of anything looking ugly. if this moves like this. You know, everything's going to be nice. There's not going to be a surged edge or anything like that. And I was mentioning my issue about seeing the elastic through the chiffon. You can't on this one actually. Here I don't think you can see it because it's a dark purple and there's black swirls in there and it's just not really seen. So I was concerned about that when I was sewing, and that's why I went to check with my other solid chiffon, my purple chiffon, and found you could really see the elastic. So that just stumped my whole project. But I repeat, chiffon is not a recommended fabric here. This is just me taking some risks and assessing and changing my mind if I see that it's not going to work. So that's just how that goes. With each size you have a certain length that you need to cut for the elastic. In my case it was 68 centimeters. I can remember that in metric. I'll put what that is in inches, but it'll be different for each size. For the smaller sizes it'll be a shorter elastic. And it makes total sense. It fits the neckline beautifully without creating excessive gathers. It's just very gentle. You can see the seams of my raglan sleeves maybe. And I just have a shorter raglan sleeve. I really like the way this neckline is finished with the bias tape that acts like a facing and a binding. I think it makes it super easy. If you're not working with delicate fabric, you can sew that edge there by machine if you want to. I decided to hand sew that. And I've done narrow hems that are just folded up twice, 1/4 inch each. You saw that I hand basted that. You know, some of you might find hand basting a hem like that super annoying, but I find it super relaxing. Whenever I'm doing mindless work like that, that just takes a little while. I'm always watching videos about different things. I'm educating myself in a lot of stuff. So it's not time wasted for me because I'm watching something and I'm just happily sewing away and making sure that my hems are going to be super nice with chiffon, which is always nice. So this goes perfectly into my capsule. I have paired it now with my castle point grey denim that is going to go with everything, and I've also paired it with my wide leg Fortuna pants, and you can see that now. Here's my Palermo top in this crinkle chiffon. I've paired my Palermo top with my castle point denim skirt that I've just shown in the previous video. They go together. I really like this look, and I've got a little cami under. If you were making the dress version, from here is where the 2 tiers that would be gathered onto each other would start, and then the total length would be under the knee. It's nice and roomy. You have quite a lot of ease in the design for the tiered skirts to go under there. Here you can see the lovely neckline, how this is gathered. It's not excessively gathered. Nothing is excessive in this design. I think it's really nice that the gathers are discreet. You know, when you sew this, the neckline looks huge, but then you put the elastic through and it just creates this effect where it brings it all in. I think it's really pretty. And then you have this little slit that just opens up because the elastic in there brings it outward like that, and I think it's really nice. I like the way it's finished inside. Super easy to do and it's super neat inside. Raglan sleeves. Maybe you can see the seams because I have a sheath fabric, but I have opted to do short sleeves for me because it'll be much more wearable. Otherwise it would have been full length, wider here at the bottom with a casing with an elastic. I think if I did the long sleeve version in chiffon, I would just leave the sleeve be normally without bringing it in at the wrist. But I'm really enjoying my short sleeve top. I know I'm gonna get a ton of wear out of it, and I really love the color. And even though I have a top in the same fabric, it's a totally different style, and I really enjoy this one too. Show you a closer look at the neckline here. This is a little section I finished by hand right there just because it was easier, and the elastic is caught into that little seam and it's just like that. I don't feel it uncomfortable at all here or pulling or anything. It's extremely comfortable, and that's how it looks on the side. I don't think the neckline is showing anything at all. I do have a cami underneath because this is sheer, and I think the fit on the raglan sleeves and the shoulders is super nice. I really enjoyed this one. Here's my Palermo top with my Fortuna wide leg pants. same shoes I was wearing before. Super comfortable outfit, super nice. These don't need to be very sporty if you pair them up with a lovely top like this. And I really like the style. I like this length of the top for the wide leg pant. It's not too long, just right. And yeah, another look I can do with this capsule and all these pieces. So the purple capsule is coming to an end. The next video you'll see will be the finale, and that will include a knit top that has several variations and one specific neckline that I am very drawn to that I want to sew. That will be the last video in the series, and you would have seen all the patterns made up in the book. The book is on pre-order right now. I will leave all the links down below. They are affiliate links for Amazon. And if you want to support me, you can buy your book through there if you're interested. Otherwise, the book will start shipping the first week of December, and you can buy it later when it's actually available for shipping. Tomorrow, there'll be a little intermission in the capsule collection because I have a video coming for you that has been pre-planned and has a set date. It's a fixed date, I can't really move. So there will be a little intermission in the purple capsule with another video, and then we'll be back for the finale. So I'll see you tomorrow with another video, very nice thing I'm going to show you, and then the finale. Bye and happy sewing.